stopped to think about what the sugar in your coffee, a potato, and the tough shell of a beetle all have in common? Well, the answer is one of the most vital molecules for all life on Earth, carbohydrates. Today, we're going to dive deep and unlock their secrets, from the fuel that powers our bodies to the very structures that build the world around us. Let's get right into it.
Kind of a strange trio, isn't it? But believe it or not, these three things, which seem totally unrelated, are all built from the exact same fundamental chemical blueprint. And that answer is the key to understanding how life builds itself and, gets its energy. And yeah, you guessed it, that shared blueprint is carbohydrates. They are, and I mean this literally, the most abundant biomolecules on the entire planet. So if you want to understand biology, you've got to understand these. Okay, so what are they really? Scientifically, they're called polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones. Yeah, I know, it's a total mouthful. But all it really means is that we're talking about molecules made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, arranged in a really specific way. Just think of them as the main fuel source for most cells that don't get their energy directly from the sun. This right here, this is our roadmap for today. See, carbohydrates aren't all the same. We basically classify them by size. You've got the single units, which we call monosaccharides. Then you have the pairs, or disaccharides. And then you have the huge, massive chains called polysaccharides. We're going to break them all down one by one. So first up, let's meet the monosaccharides. If you think about carbohydrates like a giant Lego creation, these guys are the individual bricks. They are the simplest, most fundamental building blocks of the whole operation. So what are these little single sugar units like? Well, they tend to have a few things in common. They're usually sweet to the taste, they dissolve really easily in water, and if you get enough of them together, they can form crystals, just like the sugar you scoop into your coffee. Now, even these simple sugars come in two main flavors, if you will, aldose and ketose. The only difference between them is where a specific oxygen atom is placed. For an aldose, it's at the very end of the carbon chain. For a ketose, it's somewhere in the middle. It's such a tiny change, but believe me, it makes all the difference in how they behave and where we find them. And here they are, the two most famous examples. Over on the left, you've got glucose, an aldose sugar, which is our body's absolute favorite fuel. And on the right, there's fructose, a ketose, which is what gives fruit its sweetness. You can see that teeny tiny structural difference right at the top of each molecule. Okay, so we've got our individual Lego bricks. What happens when we start snapping them together? Well, that's when we level up in complexity and start building the disaccharides. So, when two of these single sugars link up, they form a special kind of connection called a glycosidic bond. And to make this happen, they actually have to kick out a molecule of water, which is why scientists call it a dehydration or condensation reaction. It's like molecular Legos that click together perfectly. And here's an example I know you're familiar with. When one glucose molecule links up with a fructose molecule, they form sucrose. You know it better as plain old table sugar. See right there in the diagram how they join up, and poof, a water molecule, H2O, pops right out? Here's another one you'll recognize, lactose, the sugar found in milk. This one is made by linking a galactose molecule to a glucose molecule. It's the exact same process, just with different building blocks, leading to a completely different result. So let's just quickly recap. Sucrose is glucose plus fructose. Lactose is galactose plus glucose. And then there's maltose, or malt sugar, which is just two glucose units stuck together. See? It's all about the specific combinations. All right, we've gone from single bricks to pairs of bricks. So what happens when we start building skyscrapers? Well, that's when we get to the polysaccharides, the true megastructures of the carbohydrate world. Now, we are talking about the big leagues. Polysaccharides aren't just a few sugars linked together. No. These are massive polymers, sometimes with hundreds or even thousands of monosaccharide units all chained together. The scale here is just incredible. And just like real skyscrapers, they come in different architectural styles. As you can see here, some are just simple, long, repeating chains, but others are way more complex, with branches sticking out all over the place, creating these really intricate structures. And it's this structural variety that gives polysaccharides their amazing powers. They can be built to be flexible and branched, which turns out to be perfect for storing energy. Or they can be built straight and rigid, which is perfect for building strong physical structures. And that brings us to the really important question. Why does the shape of these molecules matter so much? Well, it all comes down to their function. really a battle between two different jobs, storage versus structure. So let's look at the two heavyweights of the polysaccharide world, starch and cellulose. Get this. They're both made from the same thing, glucose, but their shapes are completely different. Starch is all branched out, which makes it super easy to break down for a quick energy hit. Cellulose, on the other hand, is a straight, rigid chain, which is perfect for building strong walls. Here's a look at starch. This is how plants store their energy. Think potatoes, rice, corn. See all those branches? Each one of those branch ends is a point where enzymes can quickly latch on and snap off glucose molecules whenever the plant needs a burst of energy. It's like a battery with tons of terminals. Now compare that to cellulose. It's a whole different ballgame. Here, the glucose units are linked up in a straight line. These straight chains then stack neatly together like a pile of lumber, and they form these incredibly strong fibers. This is literally what makes wood strong and what gives plants their structure. It's a building material, not a battery. And fun fact, this is exactly why we can eat potatoes, but we can't eat wood. Our bodies have the enzymes to break apart the branches of starch, but we just don't have the right tools to break down the tough, rigid structure of cellulose. So when you think about carbohydrates, please don't just think about sugar or pasta. Think about the instant energy that's powering your every move right now. Think about the long-term energy stores in your body. Think about the very backbone of your DNA and RNA. I mean, from building the walls of plant cells to helping our own cells talk to each other, carbohydrates are just absolutely essential to life as we know it. So we've seen how these simple sugars can be assembled into everything from quick-burning fuel to the very framework of a tree. But if carbohydrates are the fuel and the bricks of life, what other kinds of molecular machines are at work inside of us, running the whole construction site? Well, that's a story for another time.